Welcome back to Music and Wood. This is going to be a super special video. I'm going to take you on a journey while I build a guitar for the first time. We're going to take this and turn it into this. The wood for the body is going to be Tele, and I'm going to use Seymour Duncan Humbucker pickups. This is going to be a Telecaster style guitar with a twist. I've designed my own body shape, which essentially is a Telecaster on one side and something kind of like a Strat with the horn, or maybe a Mustang down here with the offset body. It's also going to have some contours in the front and the back. Since this is my first guitar, I'll be using a pre-formed and fretted neck. This is an all rosewood neck, and I'm going to put a Graphtec nut on the neck. Also, we're going to use Fender locking tuners because locking tuners are just awesome. Make string changes super easy. So, I hope you enjoy the journey of building an awesome guitar.
First, I needed to glue the guitar body outline onto some 3/8" MDF to use as my master body template. I was able to print the outline with some 13" roll photo paper. I used Affinity Design to make the outline of the body. It's a nice pay once to own bit of software, and it's definitely very powerful. I would certainly suggest it if you needed some graphic design software. I let the glue dry for a few hours and then got to work at the bandsaw. I had to cut away as much of the material from the template as I could, getting close to but ensuring to be not too close to the outline so that I could smoothen the template in a subsequent procedure. To smoothen the body template outline, I used a oscillating spindle sander, starting with a wider drum to help keep the passes smooth. To get the finer areas and tighter radius corners, I switched to a smaller radius drum. The outline needs to be as smooth as possible because the bearing on the router will be rolling against the template. A smoother template means less cleanup work on the body later. The template looks pretty nice. I'm happy with the shape, and I'm looking forward to see what it'll look like as a guitar. Time to get the raw stock for the body blank roughly planed. This first passive planing is just to get the two boards pretty much equal in thickness. Since I do not have a jointer yet, I had to make do with a table saw to get as nice an edge as possible and as 90 degrees as possible to one face of the boards. Definitely wasn't perfect, but it'll work. On to the glue up. A liberal spread of wood glue and working it into the wood with a shop cloth should keep the two boards together very well. I like to avoid cleaning my clamps after a glue up, so I'll generally put down some paper towels in between the workpiece and the clamps to catch the squeeze out. Looking good? Guess I should wipe that excess all off with a damp rag before it is a pain to get off later. After a day of letting the glue dry, I set the template onto the body blank and found a nice position. Then traced the outline onto the blank for a rough shape to follow when removing the excess material with the bandsaw. I'm definitely trying to stay at least a quarter of an inch away from the outline so that I can smoothly route out that material later when I tape the template onto the body. It's really starting to take shape. Kinda somewhat looks like a guitar. Now I will plane the body down a bit more to clean up the glue seam and make the surface pretty flat for the router to slide on after the initial template router pass. With some double-sided tape, I attached the template onto the body. Now I'll run the router around the template along the edge. I only remove about half the thickness of the body with the first pass. One tip is to remove material in shallow passes, getting closer and closer to the template with each pass. That way, the bit has less chance of biting in and ripping out a chunk of the guitar body. With the first half of the outline routed, the template can be removed, and now the body will be the template line for the router to follow. You know the tip about taking shallow passes? Well, I had a big chunk tear out, and I thought I totally messed up the body. Thought about maybe gluing it back in, but figured I could sand it out and just modify the body shape ever so slightly. I apparently did not shoot any film when I was removing the neck pocket material with a Forstner bit, but I did that first. Then, I used some double-sided tape to attach the neck pocket template that I had made onto the body. Then used the router to remove the rest of the material from the neck pocket. With the neck pocket made, it looked like a good idea to see how the pocket and neck went together. Also, I figured it was time to put the tuning hardware on the neck so I could get the neck angle correct with some test strings. This is a pre-shaped and fretted WD Music all rosewood neck. It's super cool. The fretboard's rosewood, the whole neck is rosewood. It's got a nice feel and it looks great. I did need to drill the extra holes for the locking tuners and remount the tuner peg holes a bit. It was a bit of a tense process because I did not want to mess up an almost $300 neck. The pickguard that I had found for the guitar build needed some minor modification to fit the bridge plate that I wanted to use. Quick cut with the scroll saw got the fit just right. With the pickguard, neck, and bridge in place, it was time to see how they all fit together. I was going for a 25.5-inch scale length, so I set the bridge saddles all to a good medium point and measured out from the nut to the bridge saddles. Certainly wanted to make sure the scale length is correct, so I made a few measurements and rechecks and kept checking over and over, trying to align things before committing to the bridge placement and putting a couple of holes in there to hold it down. Also, I was trying to get the bridge as centered as possible so the strings did not sit too far to either side of the neck. Now it's time to route the humbucker pickup cavities out, so I lined up the pickup template to the center line of the body, and then I used a Forstner bit at the drill press again to remove a bunch of material before routing out to the final shape and depth. Now I'm measuring to make sure I get the correct depth for the first pass of the pickup cavity. Then I'll route out the rest of the material slowly, taking passes, going deeper and deeper until I get to the correct depth and ensure a clean pickup cavity route. For the second pickup cavity, I traced the pickup placement and then drilled out the bulk material without the template on the body. This allowed for better visibility and chip removal with a vacuum. Then of course the same process of routing and checking the depth with the caliper and continuing until I reached the proper depth. Moving on to routing out the control cavity. I placed the pickguard on and traced where I wanted the control plate, and then marked the center line, and lined up my template with that center line. Now for one of the most nerve-wracking parts, drilling the wire channels from the pickup cavities to the control cavity. You need to be sure to get the correct angle so you don't go through the back of the body. The next day, and more drilling to do. It's time to get the jack plate mounted. I found the center of the body with the caliper and marked a point for the pilot bit. I did not want the pilot to be too big because the Forstner bit needed to grab into the center also. I wanted to countersink the jack cup so that it would sit flush in the body, so I started with a wider bit, and then went in somewhat shallow, and switched to a smaller bit, so I could create a lip for that cup to sit in. I kept checking the fit of the jack cup until it worked well enough. Now I need to put in the metal bracket that the jack and the cup are going to get bolted to. I just put it in, used a bolt, and hammered it in so that the tongs would grip into the wood body. On to more body smoothing to remove the small line left from the router and smoothen out the shape. Also, I had to fix that big chip out from when I was routing the initial shape of the body. With the pickup cavities routed out, I could now check the alignment of the strings on the pickups and finish drilling out the holes for the bridge plate. After getting everything aligned, I drew some witness lines on tape so I knew where the neck needed to be when I drilled it in. On to the final round of planing to get the body to the final depth. I'm only removing material from the back of the body because if material is removed from the front of the body, the depth of the cavities would change. Another stressful part is drilling the holes to mount the neck to the body. I wanted to countersink the finishing washers that I was going to use for the neck screws, so I marked it all out, then went back to the drill press and used a Forstner bit to remove the right depth of material to countersink the washers. Next, I drill the pilot holes for the screws that I'll use to mount the neck to the body. Using the witness lines I had made earlier, I was able to line the neck back up, hold it in place, and carefully drill the rest of the pilot holes for the screws in the neck. Now on to another mistake that I made. I was too excited to get the strings on the guitar and decided to freehand drill the through body string holes. Luckily, it was not as bad as it could have been. There was still just enough room for the string ferrules. I would definitely use a drill press the next time I'm doing this. On to the last work on the body before sanding and finishing, contouring and shaping. I was not sure how I was going to get the shape of the comfort contours, but I figured a hand plane might work. It did well enough for the top of the body, but wasn't exactly what I needed for the belly cut in the back of the body. The back of the body was a bit more complex. Not only was it a bevel, but it was contoured, so I had to figure out how this was going to work. I started with a rasp and tried files, small block planes, a whole different set of tools to remove the material from the body. Finally, I was able to get a shape that I did like and had to sand a lot to remove the tooling marks, but it came out looking well. Unfortunately, I ran out of space on this card and apparently lost the rest of the build footage on another SD card. So, we're going to jump to the final product now.
So here's the finished product. Definitely had fun overall building the guitar. Unfortunately, I actually finished this guitar months ago. My family and I moved, so we had to get things ready in the new house. I'm still working on getting the new space set up for recording videos. Hopefully we'll have this done soon so I can keep making more videos at a more rapid pace to share some fun information and interact with you. But back on the guitar, definitely was a good experience. And the best takeaway from the process is to essentially make sure you take your time. And as you're doing each step, think about what you're doing. Make sure you measure multiple times for everything that you need to measure. And for sure, from the start, before you even make any cuts, plan your entire build. From your raw block of wood that you're going to plane and glue up for your body blank to how you're going to go through and route the cavities and then do the finishing work. Just make sure you plan everything out ahead of time so that you can make sure your steps will fit together nicely. Unfortunately, I did screw something up pretty bad. I used a hand drill to drill the through body holes for the strings rather than using a drill press. The drill press would have definitely been a better answer to the question of what tool do I use? Unfortunately, used the hand drill and the holes weren't exactly perfect going through the body. Now, I was close enough to where nothing interfered with another hole and I was able to get all the ferrules in to hold the backs of the strings in to make sure it's strung up and held tuned nicely. But I got very lucky. Could have been absolutely horrible and I would have had to potentially chop out or route out part of the back of the guitar, fill it with another block, and then re-drill new holes. That would have been how I would have fixed that if it was too far gone. So why build a guitar instead of buy a guitar? A few reasons. One, I really enjoy woodworking and I wanted to try to build a guitar. I've never built a guitar before. It was a great process. I had a lot of fun, learned some things along the way, and I'm ready to do it again and build more guitars. Two, I wanted something that was kind of unique. So this body shape is not super unique or anything, but it's a rather different body shape than other guitars out there. It was designed after Telecaster, so I could reuse some Telecaster parts and the Telecaster neck, but otherwise it's my design for the other half. Just economically made, so I didn't have to actually make all of the pickguard and the bridge plate, control, cavity, plate cover, and all of that, so it worked out well. Also, it was a bit cheaper to build the exact guitar that I wanted, rather than to buy something how I wanted it already. I could have probably bought something cheaper and then changed the parts out to get something close to what I wanted, but then I still wouldn't have had exactly what I wanted in terms of wood and everything, so that's why I went with building. So I'd like to do a cost breakdown of everything that went into building this guitar. It was $30 for the body wood, the Sapele wood that I got from the lumberyard nearby. And then it was $10 for the CTS pots, $34 for the bridge plate and the control cavity cover plate, $59 for the Fender locking tuners, $14 for this really cool mirror pickguard. That was a fun addition to this to make it somewhat Jimmy Page-esque. And then we've got $8 for the ferrules, for the string ferrules in the back of the body of the guitar, $6 for the speed knobs, and $150 for the Seymour Duncan Mayhem pickups. These are really great pickups. I actually designed this guitar to be a down-tuned guitar, so it's a drop C guitar, and these pickups are super clear with a drop C tuning, more so than any other pickup I've had. So $150 for those pickups on sale from Sweetwater. Right now I think they're about $200 or so on Sweetwater, but definitely still a very good buy. Then we've got $13 for the TUSQ nut, $6 for the jack, and $7 for the jack cup that holds the jack in place, $16 for the cloth covered wire that I used to wire everything up for all the electronics. And then we had $16 for 2 cans of clear lacquer that I put on top of the finish, or well, on top of the paint anyway. It is the finish. And then $8 for sanding sealer, $24 for 3 cans of tinted lacquer to create this burst effect. And the most expensive thing for the guitar overall was $279 for the all rosewood neck. Totally well worth it to focus on the body and the finishing process first, so I could get into that and design a guitar. And you know, I'm going to try to make a neck here soon, though. We'll see. So that was $690 plus my time, which was about 28 hours of labor to build this guitar. So almost $700. I could definitely buy another guitar for $700 or less, swap out the pickups, put some locking tuners on it, and have a really nice guitar. I'd still have to do some fretwork and setup and stuff to make it play the way I wanted to, but there'd be other little things that still wouldn't be exactly how I made this guitar. Now, when you think about building a guitar, you're not just buying all the parts for the guitar. You need to have all the tools to build the guitar and all the templates to cut out all of your cavities for things. So I designed the template for the body, just used some MDF for that, got a sheet of MDF from the hardware store, printed out the outline, and of course made that template. And that was a rather inexpensive way to go about that, but a little more expensive than just buying a template. You can find templates for already made styled guitars like Strat style, Telecaster style, Les Paul style, Flying V, you know, any kind of really template out there you can find online and buy for a very nice price. And then you don't have to make your own template. But there were some other things that I did need to buy for this that I didn't really want to make, that I was going to reuse over and over. So I did buy pickup templates, and then I created new templates from the pickup templates. So I've got the master poly, template, kind of a plastic template, and then I created MDF templates that I could use on the guitar body. So if I messed up the MDF template, I still have the master to go back to and recreate a new template from. And those were $21 for those pickup templates. Then the neck template, I actually bought a template that was a Telecaster and a Strat neck pocket on either side. So you can flip it around and swap out your neck if you rerouted this out or something, but more really what that's useful for is to have a one template that you can use for either style neck when you're building a guitar. And that was $30 for that dual neck template. Of course, again, I also made an MDF version of it to keep the plastic template nice and safe. And I did not have really long drill bits. So to be able to drill the wire channels from the cavities, I needed to get those long bits, and those were $16 off Amazon. Really inexpensive. So only about $67 for these multi-use items. It's pretty good. So right now we're at $757 total for all that. And that doesn't even include the power tools that I used to build the guitar. So I've got a list of all the tools that I used: a planer, a bandsaw, table saw, drill press, orbital sander, oscillating spindle sander, a router, a drill, and a scroll saw. That's easily more than $2,000 in tools that I already had that helped me build this guitar. If you don't already have those tools, you're not only out for all the parts and the wood to build the guitar, but you also need all the tools. And at this point, you should probably just go buy a guitar, unless you really want to get into building guitars. So, was it cheaper to build or buy? Definitely depends. Yes and no. It was cheaper to get exactly what I wanted out of a guitar, but I certainly could have bought one of many other guitars out there and swapped the pickups, and it would have been okay. So I think the experience to me was definitely worth it, and I'm going to build more guitars now. So if I were to sell this guitar, I would probably sell it for about $3,000. With all the tools, the time, the parts, and everything that went into this, the design. You know, it's American, handmade, right here in the USA guitar. It would probably be for about $3,000 or more dollars, somewhere around the $3,000 to $3,500 range. I can definitely see why some boutique guitar builders are going to be pricey because of the time it takes to do these in small batches rather than having machines churning them out from, say, a big factory or something. Also, when you're doing something by hand and you're looking at every single step, every single movement of a tool, you're really focused on exactly what it's doing and making sure that the final product is exactly what it needs to be. So I want to talk about the finishing steps of the guitar. I, unfortunately, didn't have the footage survive for the finishing stages of the guitar. Through the move or something, I don't know what happened, it's not there. But I can talk about it. It was definitely a learning experience. I don't have a whole lot of finishing experience, definitely not with a guitar anyway, but mainly I've used water-based products. This time, I chose lacquer. I wanted to see how that would work, and also I've only got a couple of lacquer finished guitars, so thought it might be something nice to do. Definitely enjoyed working with the lacquer. It was a really easy to use finishing medium, and it really flowed well and kind of blended together as you spray the different layers. They all kind of mesh and meld together and melt back into each other. It's really nice looking finish comparatively to kind of the layering of acrylic or a water-based, kind of paint or something. Quick rundown of what I did here. I started off by sanding the body to about 300 grit, then sprayed a bunch of sanding sealer on it. Then I re-sanded that, and then I sprayed some more, and then went up to 600 grit, just a quick kind of touch up to smoothen things out there, to level the surface and prepare it for the tinting, the paint that went on it. I tried a couple of different methods with how to actually finish the guitar. And the first time I sprayed the center yellow and then tried to spray the rest of the guitar red and then try to fill in the kind of border here with the orange, and it really didn't look good. It wasn't great. So I wound up just re-sanding off the entire top of the guitar to start again. This time I sprayed the top of the guitar yellow and then came in and sprayed out the inside with some of the more amber orange tinted lacquer, and then came in for the final perimeter with the darker lacquer. And that really kind of achieved the look that I was going for with the burst. So I learned that's how you do a burst. Also, I chose a burst to do rather than a solid color because it seemed like it would be a little more fun to learn how to do that rather than just spray one color across the entire guitar. In terms of the curing and clear coat process and polishing, basically what I did was to let the tinted lacquer dry for a couple of weeks or so, and then I took the clear lacquer and I put a series of coats on throughout a day. So I would take one can, and about every 30 minutes I'd spray another coat of the clear lacquer on, and wait 30 minutes, spray another, wait 30 minutes. I think I did maybe 6 or so coats and the can was basically empty on a day. And then I waited another couple of weeks or so, letting that cure up a bit, and then did that same process again with a whole nother can of clear lacquer. After that, I gave it about a month to cure. So I'd been doing some reading and it seemed like you really wanted to give it some time to cure before coming in and polishing. So I figured I could wait. I had the time. Didn't have anyone demanding their finished guitar yet. So, of course I'm the one demanding the finished guitar. But, if you're battling yourself, you've got some other problems. So now let's look at the polishing portion to this. So what I did was to start off with, let's see, some wet sandpaper, and I did some wet sanding just to kind of knock down the highs. It was a really high grit sandpaper too, somewhere around the 1,000 or 1,500, 2,000 range, somewhere that really high range of sandpaper, and used the wet sanding to just smoothen that out. Then came in with some steel wool, working up to quad-aught steel wool. And then after that, went ahead and took the surface, cleaned it all off, made sure everything was nice and debris free, and then got into the polishing. So I just used like a Meguiar's car polish and a Ryobi random orbital polisher. Put some of that onto the polisher, the Meguiar's onto the polisher, and then went to town. And I think I got a pretty decent result. I will say, when I was sanding, I did burn through just a little bit right here. So I decided to actually take it a step further and do a little bit of relicking. So that's why we can see some of the exposed wood here. It actually burned through in a decent spot where if this is, relicked, it's kind of where maybe an arm might be rubbing or holding on to it. So it worked out in my favor that I actually went through the finish on that. Could have been over here or there, and it wouldn't have been as write-offable as, oh, that's relicking. But in any case, I think it looks pretty good. Also, we can see some pick kind of hits here, if you will, relicking, and it lines up perfectly how I would play this guitar. You can see I've already kind of scratched up a bit of the mirror. I don't know if you can see from there, but I've scratched a bit of the plastic mirror kind of surface here with my pick, and it's exactly where that relicking is. It was definitely a great process. If you're into woodworking, if you want to make a guitar, I suggest it. If you want something somewhat inexpensive, but you want your parts to be what they should be, what you desire, I would say go buy the kind of guitar you want, whether it's a ESP or a Gibson or a Fender or something, Epiphone, whatever, and then replace the parts. You're going to have basically the same thing, but a lot less effort put into it. So also, time and everything like that, it might save you some time. I'm definitely going to build more guitars, and hopefully you'll follow with some more guitars. So definitely please give a like and a thumbs up here for the video. I'm going to be coming out with much more as we're going here, so definitely stick around. And now I just want to give you a really fun demo of this guitar. As I said, it was designed from the beginning to be drop C, or at least a D standard guitar. And here's a cool song. Hopefully you'll like it.